So welcome to Jumbo Eyes and welcome to our lecture series called Daily MCQ Practice. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs through a set of 4 to 5 MCQs. Okay? Because we want you to revise your current affairs. And what better way to revise your current affairs than by getting the much needed MCQ practice? Because this MCQ practice would come in really handy when you are going to prepare for your prelims exam next year. Okay? Now, this MCQ series basically covers current affairs. So every day we'll be covering 4 to 5 MCQs from current affairs alone. For static subjects like polity, geography, history, we'll have separate MCQ series. This only focuses on current affairs. Now, if you make this lecture series a daily habit of yours, then 4 to 5 MCQs, though it might seem like little effort, but these 4 to 5 MCQs would add up to more than 1200 MCQs. And that too from current affairs alone. 1200 MCQs from current affairs alone are more than sufficient. Okay, you won't have to worry about your current affairs portion while giving your prelims exam because that would be taken care of because you have practiced 1200 MCQs from it. Okay, so make this lecture series a daily habit of yours. All right, let's begin our discussion starting with question number 1. Consider the following statements regarding impeachment of judges. The procedure for removal of Supreme Court and High Court judges is mentioned in Article 124, Clause 4 of the Indian Constitution. The motion for impeachment has to be moved by not less than 100 members in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Impeachment motion is put to vote irrespective of the findings of 3-member inquiry committee. Okay. Now, our Constitution clearly mentions a procedure to remove judges. Okay. The procedure for removal of Supreme Court judges is mentioned in Article 124, Clause 4. And the procedure for removal of High Court judges is mentioned in Article 218. Though Article 218 clearly mentions that for the removal of High Court judges, same procedure would be followed, which is followed for Supreme Court judges. Okay? But still, we'll say that the procedure for removal of High Court judges is mentioned in Article 218, despite the fact that both of them are same. Okay? So this statement is false. Now, the procedure is such that a motion shall be moved in Lok Sabha. For that motion to be admitted, that motion would be related to removal of a judge. It needs at least the support of 100 members of Lok Sabha. For that motion to be introduced in Rajya Sabha, it needs the support of 50 members of Rajya Sabha. Alright, so not 100 members of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, 100 of Lok Sabha, 50 of Rajya Sabha. Once the motion is admitted, then the presiding officer of Lok Sabha, that is the speaker, will create a 3-member committee. Okay, that 3-member committee would be headed by CJI or Supreme Court judge. Okay, it would have a judge from High Court and an eminent jurist. Okay, this 3-member committee will investigate the charges against a judge, and if this committee finds the judge guilty, then the matter would be put to vote in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha should pass that resolution or that motion by 2/3 members present and voting, and at least the number of votes should be greater than 50% of total strength. That is the case in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Once it is passed in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, the matter is presented to President, and President shall pass an order to remove that judge. So far, 6 attempts have been made. None of the judges have been removed because the procedure is so difficult. Okay. Impeachment motion is put to vote irrespective of the findings of 3-member inquiry committee? No. Only if the 3-member inquiry committee finds the judge guilty. If it does not find the judge guilty, well, then the matter is not even put to vote. Okay, so this is also false. No statement is correct. Question 2. Consider the following statements regarding Vaikom Satyagraha. It was a temple entry movement in 1924 in Vaikom, Tamil Nadu. E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar was called Vaikom Virar for his contributions in this Satyagraha. Vaikom Award, which awards contributions towards equality and justice, was instituted in 2023 by Tamil Nadu government. Okay. So look, back in the day, in 1924, there was a princely state called Travancore. Okay. That princely state lie in the current geography of or the current boundaries of Kerala. So Travancore became Kerala. Okay. Now Travancore or Kerala had a city or a place called Vaikom. In that city, there was a temple, Mahadev temple. And the lower caste people, especially the Ezhavas, which are lower caste people in Kerala, were not allowed to enter that temple. So a satyagraha was organized by various social reformers to allow these temples be opened up for Ezhavas also. Okay, and that satyagraha was called Vaikom Satyagraha and started in 1924, went on till 1925. So it was a temple entry movement in 1924 in Vaikom, but Vaikom is not in Tamil Nadu, it is in Kerala. Okay, so because of that, this statement is false. Now, in this movement, many tall leaders participated, many tall social reformers participated. One such tall leader was E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar, also known as Periyar. Okay, now E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar participated in this movement and his contributions were so huge that he was given the title of Vaikom Virar. I mean, the hero of Vaikom. Okay, so this statement is correct. Now, in 2023, to mark the 100-year celebration of Vaikom Satyagraha in 2024, Tamil Nadu government instituted Vaikom Award, and this award shall be given to a person who has spent his life, made contributions towards promoting equality and justice. Okay, this award would carry a certificate, a medal, and 5 lakh rupees cash prize. Okay, so this statement is correct. Only 2 and 3. Question number 3. Which of the following is our correct regarding Employee Provident Fund organization? So it is a statutory body that functions under Union Ministry of Finance. Okay. The organization is responsible for management of social security schemes for the employees of organized sector. It oversees funds of over 7.37 crore contributing subscribers and a total of 32.56 crore members. Now look, employees of organized sector have the benefit of various social security schemes. Like they are entitled to pension schemes for which they have to contribute some money from their salary every month. They are eligible for Provident Fund scheme. They are eligible for insurance scheme. All right. And they become members of this scheme or employees of the organized sector and they have to contribute some monthly amount for it. Okay. That monthly amount goes to a fund. That fund is managed by Employee Provident Fund organization. Okay, and when these people retire, when these employees retire, well, they get their required pension, they can avail Provident Fund, and when they require their insurance, they can also get that. Okay, so EPFO basically manages the funds in which money for these schemes gets collected. Okay, now EPFO is a statutory body established under a law by Parliament in 1953. But it doesn't function under Union Ministry of Finance. It functions under Ministry of Labor and Employment. Alright, so this statement is false. The organization is responsible for management of social security schemes. Absolutely correct. It oversees funds of. This is also correct. Okay. D. Question number 4. Consider the following statements regarding critical minerals. These are essential for economic development and national security. There is no one definition of critical minerals and each country draws up its own list of critical minerals. Indian government has identified 30 minerals as critical. Okay. So look, critical minerals are those rare minerals that have become extremely important in today's day and age. Today's day and age is run by electronics, right? We need lithium ion batteries, right? We are trying to transition to green energy. We need electric cars. We need new types of technologies, right? Now, these new types of technologies require certain materials, and these materials are very rare to find. They're not available to every country. And these rare minerals or materials that are used in these new path breaking technologies are referred to as critical minerals. Okay, so they are essential for a country's economic development because all the electronics are sourced from them. Okay, and they are also important for national security. All right. Now, critical minerals are used in new technologies. So for example, lithium is a critical mineral. Why? Because the world is moving towards electric vehicles, and electric vehicles mostly run on lithium ion batteries. So for that you need lithium. So lithium becomes a critical mineral. Similarly, there is cobalt, there is tungsten, and many others. Okay. So these are essential for economic development and national security, absolutely correct. But every country defines or publishes a list of critical minerals based on their own circumstances. So every country's list is different based on their own circumstances, based on their own technologies, based on their own reserves of these minerals, right? So, for example, USA has around 50. US has published around a list of 50 critical minerals. Japan has 31. European Union has more than 30. Okay. So there is no one definition of critical minerals, and each country draws up its own list of critical minerals. Absolutely correct. And in 2023, Indian government published its own list of critical minerals, and it has identified 30 minerals: lithium, cobalt, tungsten, and many more. So this is also correct. The reason why critical minerals were in the news was because recently central government has auctioned a mineral block for mining, right? And that mineral block contains tungsten, and tungsten is a critical mineral. But locals and the state government have been protesting against the central government for allowing mining of tungsten. Okay, but government of India is very serious about tungsten because it is a critical mineral and it is used. Tungsten is basically used in aerospace, defense applications, electronically active defense applications, aerospace applications, right? So critical minerals, every country defines its own list of critical minerals, and these are critical for a country's development and national security. So all are correct. All right. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. And please, please revise these current affairs through MCQ's lecture. Okay. Why? Because revision would allow you to remember these MCQs for longer periods of time. Now you can revise them from our notes, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. These notes shall contain written detailed solutions to each and every question, MCQ, discussed above. Right? So go through those written detailed solutions because it would hardly take more than 5 to 10 minutes. Okay? But you'll be able to remember them for longer periods of time. Now, where can you find a Telegram channel? Well, just below this video, in the comment section, you'll find a link. Just click on that link, it'll take you to our Telegram channel, and from there, you can download the notes for this lecture. All right. On that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.